Certainly very pleased this morning to have all of our guests. I don't know all of you, certainly glad to meet Juan and Mark and our friend who is with us in our service. Thank you so much for coming and for your inspiring words to us. And our church is most pleased to welcome you and to do everything we can to accommodate what you're doing. I read to you from a passage in Jewish scripture, chapter 12 of a writing called simply The Preacher, Ecclesiastes, that's what the word means. And here you find these words. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in my life. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, and the clouds return after the rain. Remember him before the silver cord is severed, or the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered in the spring, or the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Just three things for you to remember this morning. It's all about memory today. Remember Creator, youth. Remember your Creator while you're young. Now some of you might say, well, what good's a sermon like that? Because most of us are old. So why are you emphasizing the young today? Well, various reasons. But let's start with the word remember. What does the word mean? We use it in any number of different ways. When I go to Kroger with a list of things, I need a list, I can tell you. But my wife will say to me, all right, don't forget this. Remember to get such and such. Well, we use remember that way, don't we? We use remember, some of you say to me, I remember when there were so many people present in the Sunday morning service, we had to put chairs in the aisles. That's a memory we would like to restore, isn't it? We'd love to be able to put chairs in the aisles again because we had so many people attending our service. But then we use remember in a much larger sense than that. Some of us remember, I was only 11 years old when we were told to remember the Japanese planes flew over a place in Hawaii called Pearl Harbor. And we started talking about remember Pearl Harbor. We don't use the words exactly, but there's something the same kind of thing when we say remember 9/11. And so there are many different ways to remember. One of the things we remember, we come to this table, Jesus said, do this in remembrance of me. So to remember is to keep something in mind. To remember is to hold something in readiness that helps you to live in a certain way day after day. My insurance company, Geico, reminded me through email recently that if I took a senior driver's ed course, they would give me a discount on my insurance. So always looking for a discount, I took the driver's ed course. And one of the things the driver's ed course wants us old people to do is to remember when you're driving. Remember certain things, because if you remember those things, you'll be a safer driver. And so, having taken the course now, I drive down the road, and I try to keep in mind all the things going on around me, much more than I would had I not taken this driver's ed course. I remember that I shouldn't drive too fast. I won't say that I always drive the speed limit, but I try not to drive too fast. And I try to avoid distractions, because in the driver's ed course it says if you take your eyes off the road for just a matter of a second or two, you can get into all kinds of trouble. And so remembering these things that I have learned in the driver's ed course, I think I'm a little better driver than I was. Folks who are with us this morning have what is called the 12-step program to help them to maintain the goal that they are seeking. And if they keep these 12 steps in mind, if they're constantly ingrained in their heads, then it helps them to negotiate the life that they live each day. And so, remember is the first word. The second word that we found in this text is to remember your Creator. Remember your Creator. Well, who is the Creator? Well, we don't know what was in the mind of the writer who penned these words, what he thought of the Creator, or who the Creator was. He may have thought of the Creator as we often do, certainly when we were children. Maybe some of us carry that on into adult. We think of the Creator, synonym for who we call God, as kind of a giant human being, larger than life man, who oversees the whole universe. But actually, we can't define God. God is a mystery. We can only use symbols and metaphors when we talk about God. In fact, in your hymnal, one of the hymn writers has found about 40 different words that are used in the Bible to illustrate who God is. Source and solid, rock and cloud, fortress, fountain, shelter, light, judge, defender. All these terms are used, and you can avail yourself of all of them to try to think about God, the Creator. But the church certainly doesn't want to continue an old argument that the church used to have with science. Where did we come from? Was Charles Darwin right about the whole process, the long millions of years process, as over against the very poetic picture of how you and I came to be in the Bible? We let science give us the scientific and technical answers to these questions, and we read the Bible in terms of symbolism and metaphor and poetry. So the church and science are not at odds with each other. And so who are we to remember? We're to remember our Creator. We're to hold in mind that one who is called by many names in Holy Scripture. Remember your Creator, but let's get to the main point this morning. Remember the Creator while you're young. Why do you think this writer was so intent upon telling his readers or his hearers, because this was probably told many, many times before somebody wrote it down? Why do you think he was so intent on saying it's important to remember God, your Creator, your wonderful fortress, as we sang about this morning? The mighty fortress is our God. Why is it so important to remember when you are young? We gave the Bible to a young man this morning. Why is it so important for him to remember his Creator when he's young? Well, I can think of any number of reasons, but I'll just give you 2 or 3 of them this morning. One is because of great excitement that you can feel when you're young, when you can know about your Creator, you can know about God, you can know about your fortress, you can know about your judge. I had the great fortune of having Sunday school teachers all the way through my youth who were able to take the words of Scripture and give life to them. And when I heard them, it was exciting for me to find out how I could discover meaning in my life. And that's what my Sunday school teachers gave me. And so it's important while you're young enough to experience a great excitement about learning about life. And certainly, a second reason would be the sooner we learn the important things in life and begin to build them into our lives, the more wonderful our lives are going to be. Develop good habits and not bad ones. Good habits are those that strengthen you and others in body, mind, and spirit. Or as St. Paul writes in Philippians 4, 8, and 9, he says, think about certain things. And he gives you a whole list. He says, think about things that are true and noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, and praiseworthy. Think about such things and put them into practice, he says. That's another reason why we ought to remember the Creator while we're young, when we can start developing these habits. The third reason why we ought to remember God when we are young is to avoid the scars of life. There's an old story about parents who had a young son. He was about 9 or 10 years old, and the son got into a pattern of disobedience to his parents. His mother would ask him to do something, wouldn't do it. Father would tell him to do something, and he just became very disobedient. And so finally the parents sat down and talked it over, and they said, how can we can get our son to do the right things? And so the father said, I'll tell you what, I'll go out to the garage and get a piece of lumber, and when we ask him to do something he doesn't do it, or if he does something he shouldn't do, I'm going to drive a nail into this piece of lumber. And we're going to let him see after a couple of weeks what his board looks like. And so that's what they did. About 2 weeks later, they brought the board out of the garage, and it was just filled with nails. And they showed it to the boy and said, look, this is what you have been doing. And the boy felt terrible. He said, I just had no idea I was acting like that. The father says, okay, tell you what, beginning now, for the next 2 weeks, when you obey us, we'll pull a nail out. And so, sure enough, 2 weeks later, the parents were very happy to bring him a piece of lumber. All the nails were gone. And when the father showed the board to his son, he thought his son would be really happy when he saw a very sad look on his son's face. And father said, what's wrong? And he said, well, the nails are gone, but the scars are still there. One of the important things about remembering the Creator when you're young is you can avoid these scars that will carry with you all your life. The final reason that I can think of this morning for remembering the Creator when you're young is, and this may be the most sobering reason of all, because it may be the only time that you'll ever have to remember your Creator. It can be a very sad story. We read in the paper recently an article that said deplorably few students are warned about alcohol. It went on to say that 2,000 alcohol-related deaths each year among college-age students. Said that parents and doctors and churches need to educate young people to the dangers of alcohol. Well, we certainly face that in our own immediate life. I really would have wanted to have spoken to Audrey, my daughter, earlier about my using this illustration, but I think it is vital that I do use it. And that is that our youngest grandson, whose name was William, a wonderful young man, when he was 12 or 13 years old, I helped him write an essay entitled, the essay was to be on the subject, what I think about when I wake up in the morning. And he said there were 3 things that he thought of when he woke up in the morning. He thought about friends, family, and was it food? And friends, family, and health, actually, was what he said. And then he had a paragraph about each one. About his family, he said that his family was very close and loving family, and he often thought about how much each of them loved each other. And about health, he said that he thought a lot about becoming a healthy adult. I want to eat right, exercise, and stay healthy. And that was when he was 12 or 13 years old. But between 12 or 13, unfortunately, William got off the road that his parents always had intended that he follow. And by the age of 25, that road had led to the end of his life. How important it is to remember the Creator while you're young, because it may be the only time that you will ever have to remember your Creator. 3 things then this morning. Remember your Creator while you're young, before the evil days come and you cannot find the